Welcome to the CodPast podcast, where your fishy past hooks your brilliant future. With Dr. Deborah, Laura, and Dr. Trish. Welcome to the CodPast podcast, where your fishy past hooks your brilliant future. With Dr. Deborah, Laura, and Dr. Trish.
Oh, we are live.
Almost.
I'm going to forward this.
Okay, we're live. Good morning. No, noon. Good noon. Everybody on Facebook, we love you guys. I just have to start recording, and I'm going to record on the cloud because Laura told me I have to. Yay!
Okay,
All right, we're live. Here. And we're going to have a lot of fun today. We've got an amazing...
Let's play the song. We're going to play our song.
Yeah. Okay.
Welcome to the CodPast podcast, where your fishy past hooks your brilliant future. With Dr. Deborah, Laura, and Dr. Trish.
Woohoo!
We're so popular.
Now you should play that other song. If we had a way to do it so the recording works. I figured out how to do that now, so the song actually sounds like part of the recording and not like it's on your phone.
Yeah.
There's a whole way to do that. But today we're going to have an incredible day. As you can see, this is the second week in a row I've actually got somebody in my living room. This is so cool. I've only lived here for what, 2 weeks, maybe? Mm-hmm. And I already am having parties, which is my favorite thing. That's how I manage my life, is through parties. And so this girlfriend ran into me in the grocery store on Mother's Day, and I had not seen her in 20 years. And we have a polka dotted political past. Yeah. So we were tied to some of the biggest political guys on the planet, guys that ruled Washington. And she was power hitter. And the things that we went through with some of these good old boy guys, we'd be just so rolling our eyes in those meetings. So you're going to get to meet her in just a minute. But I think right now we're going to have a fishy story, right? So Deborah, tell us why we call this weird thing CodPast.
Well, we call it the CodPast because we feel like your fishy past can hook your brilliant future. And even Laura takes it even further, where you really should check out your past, and then you decide what part of your past are you going to audition and bring into your future. But we don't want to bring it all, right? So that's why we named it CodPast. And we also found out that the cod is a very, very influential and a big deal, and it like helped save the Revolutionary War. And there's a lot of stuff.
And Jesus was a fish.
And Jesus was a fish. Jesus
made took fish and food and wine, which
oh my gosh, he had 5 fish and he fed the masses. And also we just felt like it'd be a good name because it's cool. CodPast podcast.
And look, my son asked me, so he has, I know it's backwards, but it's
no,
the cod that saved the world.
It's not backwards.
It's not backwards.
Oh, it isn't? Okay.
No, the universe fixed it.
It looks backwards to me. So it says the biography of the fish that changed the world.
What is it?
It's called, it's a cod. It's a book.
Where'd you get that?
Mark,
your son gave that to you?
Yeah, it's a book that's called The Fish That Changed the World, the cod.
Well, open it up to some page and read a sentence. Ask God to speak to you.
Okay, you want me to just randomly?
Yeah.
I will randomly.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like a oracle card reading. Tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Okay. This is kind of timely, especially since, it says during the war, fish prices reached record highs. Sound like today? And were paid to Iceland in dollars, which facilitated doing business with the American troops on the island. Icelanders built American housing and military bases and began importing large quantities of American goods. So we're supposed to talk about America today.
That is, are you going to read that book?
No.
I know you
I
don't.
want to,
You
no, I
collect
want to
books,
read it,
but
Laura. So please just
I
put it in
want to
the,
read
put it
it.
in the chat. Would you, the name of it and everything?
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
will. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's really fascinating. You know, it's weird when these girls said, let's do a podcast. I said, like, I need to do a podcast. Like, I need another, pin to stick me. And they're like, no, we're going to do it. And I said, you guys, I don't want to do it. And I'm trying to say yes to God and the universe and not say any more no's. And I'm going to get to that point. I'm almost there. But I was still in the no, drag me along phase. But they had this idea of, we'll do fishy past, and you've got a really fishy past. And I'm like, well, I don't want to talk about it. And so we have had so much fun. But as our mission in life is have more fun, get more done, and support what we know is right. And we have really done a good job. We've been doing it, what, 8 months or something like that?
I think
Yeah,
so.
and Steve McCarty, who I used to be married to, Mr. Rockstar, 16 platinum albums, he said that was the best interview he ever did last week. He loved it. He loved it. And so I think we may have sprinkled some magic on him too. But today, do you guys have a joke?
I do have a joke.
Okay.
When a fish meets the love of their life, they say they've met the gill of their dreams.
Oh,
I've got to use that.
I'll send it to you.
Really, 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 really good. I love that. Well, Laura, do you have a joke?
I don't, but you know what? I'm in a room that's full of jokes. How about that? I've got monkeys.
Blues Brothers, a giant little kitty.
And then look at that Hello Kitty. So Patty, I'm sort of telling a little tale. He went on a date just before I got here, and then he went on a date. So my oldest son went on a date while I was here, and she's getting ready to move down closer to where he lives, just coincidentally. And she's like, I'm selling all my stuff. But nobody wants this. Do you know anybody who likes Hello Kitty? And he's like, no. And then he's like, oh, my mom does. So he brought this home, but this is just going to have to be at my home away from home, because it's like 7 pounds and it's the size of a suitcase. So that's my joke for the day.
And we're getting rid of stuff because the universe decided to really get rid of Laura's past a couple of weeks ago. And we've all been joking with it and also playing with it and also going through things like, and I do want to mention this, and we should mention it at the end of it, but Jack Canfield has been really researching grief. And he's writing a book right now about choosing love over fear. And Jack is our partner in business, especially young living business, but bigger than that. And he found this woman who's incredible, one of the top people on grief. And she believes, like I do, grief can be about anything. Grief can be about trying to find your favorite earrings. It's about loss. And grief is just like a natural, beautiful human emotion. We get to have all these emotions that we get to feel. We're not robots, and we get to feel all these ups and downs and curly cues and all that. But if we don't get tools for how to empower ourselves, then other people use things to make us feel bad, and they lock us in grief. And so sometimes people experience grief and they never get over it. And Laura, can I say, or do you want to say?
Oh, about the fire?
Yeah.
Well, you go ahead. Go ahead. You've heard the story.
Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, I got a phone call from Laura, and she was with Deborah in La Jolla, and her home is in Washington, D.C. And at first it kind of scared me because of Laura's voice. And she said, I have to say something. You have to tell you something. And she said, my house is burned down a few hours ago. And I went, what? And of course, what do I think about? All my own thoughts about her house. Like, wait a minute, it's my bedroom in there, and and it's my this and that, because I'm thinking about all the great memories we had there. And my heart just fell. And so loss is anything. And in that moment, it was about my loss of Laura's house. And then my loss of, oh no, how's Laura going to handle this? And Laura has been the teacher for the last couple of weeks, because we've written, the three of us have written this together through insurance people. And, you know, it's like what this and this and this and this. But we've been laughing a lot because Laura's funny anyway. And she tells us stuff that makes us laugh. Like a couple of days ago, I played the Doors' "Come On Baby, Light My Fire" to her. And we laughed for like 15 minutes. So anyway, yeah, there's a really cool workshop that anybody can go to, but you do have to register for it, and you can get a hold of one of us or get a hold of us on
We'll put it on the CodPast Facebook page.
Yeah.
If you go to CodPast Podcast on Facebook, we'll put the link in there.
And it's going to be free, and we'll all be there live on Zoom, and you will be there live on Zoom. But this woman, I met her over Zoom, and she is incredible because she's really funny, and she's kind of like Laura. It's like, oh, okay, grief's going to happen. You're gonna face it. And now what are you going to do? We always call anything that goes on with us, well, the popcorn's still simmering. And when we see one little thing, like recently, Deborah, we were manifesting a guy for Deborah, and we would run into guys and we'd go, popcorn, popcorn, you know, and sure enough, she got a big bowl of popcorn a couple of weeks ago. So we're manifesting, and we know that if we stay together and we hold hands, that one awful moment that we thought was an awful moment is actually popcorn taking us to the next open door. Because Deborah, how big is the door of opportunity? And Laura, what do you do when you come up to the door of opportunity?
You run through it. You push that door open.
And you just get in there and you run like heck, because it'll close again, and you don't want to be 90 years old going, I should have done the door of opportunity and I didn't. Like my little 90-year-old neighbor that said that she met her old boyfriend for 20 years and had tea and never kissed him again. And she still wishes she would have kissed him one more time, you know? So I would have probably wanted more than that, but.
Well, our guest walked through the door of opportunity.
Yeah.
Mari, did you?
Oh my gosh,
Did you know
yes.
that you were going to do this today?
No, last night. I'm like, what is this about? Who's going to be on it? So.
You are.
So I knew her when she was very involved in politics, and she's got quite a resume. She's pretty amazing what she's done, and I'm going to let her kind of encapsulate that story. And also, she's facing a lot of grief right this minute, which we're going to kind of get into, because Laura loves to talk about what to do about that, and because she's got her kids just left. And, you know, she was a single mom, which I was a single mom, and Deborah was a single mom, and it's really hard work. And you're up against the world, and you're up against the good old boys club. I'm sorry, I love men, but even you men know that there's a good old boy network that kind of is not all that nice to women a lot of times. And so we had a lot in common, but we hadn't seen each other in 20 years. And then she saw me in the grocery store. I said, you need to come out and have coffee in my new house. And then I realized, oh my gosh, she's going to have coffee here. We'll do just what we did last time. And we need to hear from her. Yeah, we need to hear her stories. And so, hi, girlfriend.
Go ahead and introduce her, Trish.
I'm a total private person, so this is, I can't even tell you how out of comfort zone this is, like mega out of the comfort zone. But anyway.
Well, you know what happens? You know what happens, Mari, when and we all have that fear, right? We all have that. But once you get it out there, it dissipates. because the universe helps dissipate it. So let's put it on the pavement, like in
All right.
Phoenix, where it's
All right.
110.
Yeah.
Like in Phoenix, and like Deborah is now going to walk in with what every day?
Confidence.
Well, no, it's what were we talking about earlier that you just bring into every single building? Awe. Awe.
Yeah.
So whenever she walks in, people are like, you just bring in awe. And people do. I mean, they just like, who is this? And she projects that even on Zoom. So, so yeah, she's had quite a past. When I met her, were you working for Shaddig?
Yeah. I was
So
working in
Congressman Shaddig was one of the strongest congressmen we ever had in Arizona, and he was tied like this to all the big stuff that happened in Washington, and that was when the days of McCain were so powerful, and Shaddig and McCain were best friends, and I had worked with them on some other things, but we were both asked to serve on this political board to elect the next governor, and we were on the inside team. And we realized right away we were not really on the inside team.
With a couple of weeks, we realized that it was just a boys' club, and well, the guilty will remain nameless, but the boys would come in, and I call them boys. They were men, but they would be acting like boys. They'd come in and say almost word for word exactly what we had stated a week before. And everybody thought it was just brilliant because it came from one of the men. So that's when I said to Trish, I'm tapping out, ringing the bell. I'm not going to spend any more time doing this anymore.
Well, do you remember Matt telling us, because Matt Salmon, he also became a congressman and then a senator, and now I think he's running for governor, right? And so he's still a really good friend. Yeah, he's about as pure as you can get. Like, he's got a sweet family, sweet wife.
Very nice.
Matt's a really good guy. And I said something like, Matt, how can you stand to go work in Washington all the time? It's like, it's so awful. And he said, and she probably remembers this too, he said, well, you know, Washington is one of those places where you just have to take a hot tub in the cesspool and hope to pee. You don't get meningitis. No.
Malaria.
Yeah, malaria. And he just kept going back, and I saw him not long ago, and before he decided he was going to run for some more stuff, and he just looked kind of weary, you know, and he said, I keep trying, and I know God's got me in there, but it's you get beaten up. Totally. When you have these ideas, it's like you have to sell a tiny bit of your soul in order to have all of it. And it's really, really, really tough. And I'd like to just hear her perspective for, you know, if she could talk about that for 3 days, about what was it like.
You got to say her name, Trish. You haven't said her name yet.
Oh, what
Mari?
What is
Mari.
how do you want me
Mari,
to introduce you?
That's fine. Well, she already did. It's fine.
Oh, Mari.
Yeah,
okay, Mari.
Okay.
Because I call her, you know, Bloomingdale. I mean, I call her all kinds of things because I love her. She's like my sweet. I mean, she looks like a flower, doesn't she?
She's radiant. You're radiating light.
We were matching a little bit ago.
So, well, my glasses.
Her glasses.
So yeah, she's incredible, and I wanted to get her perspective because, honestly, Pete, I've never heard her talk about what it was like for her life working down in the tunnels, working with all these heavy-duty guys, and what that made her feel like when she was there. And then we'll hop over to kind of like present day stuff and what's going on with her right now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably the same as everybody else has talked about, working for elected officials. And, you know, you just start every day, you get up and you want to do the best you can and do the best for the constituents that you represent and the member that you're working with. And then it's just, it was a wonderful opportunity, and the people I met and enjoyed with in the state were fabulous too. So
what did you do there, Mari? What was it that was your position?
Oh gosh, we're going back so long. We covered different over a course of time because my children were really young at that time. but we covered different
Weren't you a
areas.
single mom?
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
how old were your boys?
Gosh, they were really young, 5, 3, and at the beginning 1.5, 2.
And
then
did
it
your husband leave you? Or did you leave?
Yeah. Yes, and then we basically
imagine?
separated, divorced, and it's a long time ago. But then I started working for the university, so I went over there. But yeah.
Well,
It
you
was
worked
great.
for the president of ASU, right?
Yeah.
For
a
Michael
while.
Crow.
For a while, yeah.
Yeah, and that's another really political environment, right?
Yeah, in fact, it's a lot more political sometimes than DC. The
Really?
university system is
In
very
what
political.
way? What way?
Very political. People protect their turf even more so.
Like what kind of people? Like the professors or the donors or
professors and the departments, and it's very political. So.
And you were there to raise money, correct?
No, actually, I did not raise money for them at all. I did other positions there.
Okay.
Do you find, Mari, that it sounds like, I think that politics isn't everything. It's in religion. I don't know if you're old enough to remember the Thornbirds. Remember that was about a political jockeying in the Catholic Church, and I think it's everywhere. And it's almost this game that nobody wants to play, and everybody's forced to play it in the office or in wherever they find themselves.
Right.
And did you find a way to kind of back away and not be as involved in it,
Yes, I think it's in everywhere, and probably why that, those shows that came out a few years ago about the they go into a faraway island and you have 20 contestants and they all are vying for who's going to jockey for position and who can they make alliances with somebody else, and it's all behind the scenes and nobody knows who's aligning with somebody. It's just, I think that's what got that show. I think I saw one of them or part of one, but the allure of that is that exactly what every single area of business, everything is all that way, because it's human beings and we all have the same desires, and some, when they haven't kind of restrained some of the desires that aren't great, have they jockey for position and try to get ahead, and it's all about alliances, and then the person walks out the room and totally making sure that they are downgraded and
well,
little
we've had this spirit of competition.
That's it.
That's it. Was not created by God. I mean, God doesn't have. Well, I watch nature to try to teach me about natural, and I really pay attention to it, because I think there's, if untouched, you can kind of see God in action, because God made everything, right? And competition is so strange. Laura, yesterday I was writing. Sometimes Laura and I start talking, and I swear to Pete, it's like I just tapped in to the jump drive to heaven, because she starts downloading stuff, she starts saying stuff, and I'm like, stop, I have to write this down, stop. And she said something yesterday that was so profound, and I'm gonna have to look it up to say it exactly, but it was something about,
was it about the differences? We are all unique, and I do know, some people are competitive, but I think that the best way to live is to be competitive with yourself, be a personal, it's called the PR, personal record, or your personal best. Yes, it is always nice to have that outside thing, but just because you didn't win, it's like the gold record, at least you tried, because you're going up against your own personal best and testing yourself. And then I talked about how it's interesting, and I'll just use the word media. It could be any media, how we take our uniqueness and our differences, and that's actually turned us against each other. It's like, well, this person is this superlative and this and this and this, rather than celebrating. So it's created this divisiveness between differences rather than celebrating.
Tell them that story that you had yesterday of because I didn't even really realize the percentages and how it works. And if you were a lesbian and you said XYZ, tell that story that you were saying about competing against yourself, but what the media says about you not being allowed to be unique, and how unique it is, and how you could be so much more if everybody would say just like be whoever you are.
Right.
Do you remember that story?
I don't fully remember that. I must have been on a roll because, but it's whatever your differences is. So I guess I use the lesbian, but it could be, if you're a bodybuilder, that makes you different. Although lesbian is probably how you're born, right? Like who you love, what ignites your soul, as opposed to a bodybuilder is kind of building from the outside. But we're all wired to do something, and we're just following our lives. And I think,
and to be
looking
something.
at people with curiosity, but not thinking, oh, gross or whatever, just embracing people for who they are, and just celebrating our differences. Because for example, my husband is very left brain, I'm very right brain, but it takes two of us to get epic shit done, right? Like I can't have two me's in the world, we wouldn't get anything done. And I think,
I'm sorry.
oh yeah, so I just think that everybody that's differentiated by the media and do this, do that, it's dividing us rather than celebrating us. And that wasn't the word I used, I don't remember what it was, but I think everybody should feel
so
loved.
I'm getting a message from the internet that's honestly from some people watching right now on Facebook, is saying Maury
Let Maury
needs to
speak.
talk more.
Oh,
Yeah.
why?
And because they want to know from you, they want to know about you. And so
I have a question for her. So because of even playing off what Laura said, is Maury.
Thank you, Byron, for the
So Maury, I think being a single mother, which three of us are single mothers, I think being a single mother and managing that through a career, through everything else, through our loneliness, through our sadness, through our bitterness, everything is the most amazing thing that a woman can do. And so I guess what I wanted to ask you is that what you went through and what lessons have you learned, or what tools do you have now that that you're depending on in order to, like, what friends, what maybe your church, maybe your maybe not, maybe other things, but obviously you have an amazing life, you have an amazing spirit, and there's some kind of light inside you, something that's burning and has always burned there, and you're not going to let that light go up. So tell me a little bit about Maury. That's what I want to know.
Wow, gosh, there's so many parts of that question. I should write it down so I hit them all. But so the first part of that question was how I did it, I think. I don't know, you just you work really hard all the time. And just the overall quick answer is, which I know you don't want, but I'll go in deeper as we go through, is of course, managing day to day is everything's a system and a process, and you have to be that way. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And on the deeper end to that system is understanding who I am. And it's been a process, and who I am with God and what he thinks of me and what he says about me, and really, and that part has always been a hard part, because just really registering what God says about who you are. And then the second part is believing on the promises that he set, believing and trusting. And I think the most profound realization of that was remembering the story of when Abraham and Sarah, they were unable to conceive. And so Sarah gave Abraham her handmaiden, whose name was Hagar, and she conceived, and it became, the whole relationship, the three of them became wrought with problems, especially after Abraham and Sarah had their son Isaac. So Sarah ended up kicking Hagar out into the desert, and there's a part of that that, and I can't remember if it's in Genesis or Exodus, but I think it's in Genesis, but he talks about God saw Hagar. And there's a specific verse that it is written that it says he saw her. And to know that God sees each of us in our own unique way, I think that was a kind of a big, profound thing to think about and know in the deep of your soul. And then from that point on, I've asked for God to reveal himself, and different things have happened in life that it's more real, that I know he hears, and he's provided in ways I couldn't have even dreamed about, and through the course of living in. And there's so many stories I could tell, but anyway, that's the quick short answer, because I know we don't have tons of time, but anyway.
That was a great answer, and I think we have plenty of time, and we just want to get to know you a little bit better. We could talk forever. We're really gabby women.
Yeah.
But talking about a little bit about the people that you surround yourself with, and I'm talking about human beings now. You know, we are the product of the 5 people that we surround ourselves with, and sometimes we surround ourselves with not so great people, and that affects us, right?
Yep.
And especially in a work environment.
In the work environment, yes.
Or in a really toxic work environment where her 5 people, they were the 3 children, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can't, that's going to be part of your brain.
Yeah.
And then whatever's left, and those people talk to your brain, and then you feel like you are that.
Yeah.
You are that average.
Yeah. And so maybe just a little bit about people that you're either have found or are seeking.
Yes, and that's pretty much where I'm at, in very much retreating and being sensitive to very toxic environments and not wanting to go into that at all, especially toxic work environments, and even different places of worship in churches, and seeing and sensing it right away and just running from that. But it really, and not to get so, sounds like it's all up in the sky, but I really do pray about that. And that's one of the things with the toxic work environment. You can just, when people aren't supporting each other, and it's all the sidebars and stabbing people in the back, because at the end of the day, it's how they can get ahead more, how somebody can improve their own life and get ahead, and me get over Deborah, or get over Trish and beat her and no, it's not that way. We're, as you said at the beginning, it's really holding hands and going through life together. Because at the end of the day, when we're all 90 or 100 or however many years God blesses us with, I think we'll remember our friends and the people that, even if we worked with them too, those beautiful relationships that we've had with people, and how we've been a team, and we've done things together. We've had experiences together. And
we didn't have very many experiences together because we were both so sucked in the business, and we had children. I mean, our lives were like completely full, but the magic was there. It's kind of like, the magic when you meet somebody and you kind of fall in love, magic at first sight. And that's how we both felt. We knew we were sisters, and we had a couple of really hard situations that we had to help each other with. And then we don't see each other for 20 years, and all of a sudden we love each other.
Mother's Day, and I never go. I happen to just have to run over. It's a long story. I had to run over to this grocery store, and I never go to the grocery store, and I try not to hit it up on the weekend just because it's crazy. And I just can't believe that we saw each other.
And it was healing. I was with another friend of mine, Melanie, and it was great because Melanie had met.
I knew Melanie from a long time ago.
They'd met in Washington, D.C. And so they kind of had a little healing moment.
Yeah, this is sweet.
It was sweet.
And that was not by chance that you.
No,
there are no accidents. God's doing some kind of magic
sprinkles. So I want to hop over because we want to love on her because she's going through a lot of transitions right now, just like you are. I am. Deborah is. We're all kind of in this transitional state, and can I say? depression and stuff like
Yeah.
that?
Oh, yeah. Just
Okay.
being down and
She's
anxiety.
been really full of anxiety and
Mhm.
depression and sadness,
yeah.
and she's been to counselors and she's been to psychiatrists, and they
Oh.
wanted to put her on medicine.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have her smelling joy as fast as she can, keep
It's just-
smelling it.
It's well, yeah.
And she's
I just put it on my heart before we
Oh,
started.
yeah.
Okay.
That's great.
and
Yeah.
she and so, but again, God has her back, right?
Right.
But I think she lost her job. She lost her children. I mean, she's
Yeah.
definitely in grief of loss,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so of course she's going to be depressed. It's not like, but then what is she stuck in? Not great relationships that are supportive, right? And you only have 5. Like, who are the 5? And so,
Well, now you have us, Mari.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, and it's been really just that transition going through it. And I did start going to a counselor just to work through it. I'm like, oh yeah, this is normal, because the kids, when you're a mom, I don't know if there are any men on, but they wouldn't know this, but when you're a mom, there is that transition when you are pregnant and you get all these, we have baby showers, everybody's excited, you're going to have a newborn, and then you go through that transition, you bring the baby home, and it's just wonderful. And then you raise this child till they're 20 or 19 or whenever they move out, 18, but nobody ever prepares you for that transition time. And that's the hardest thing, because we don't have parties like, oh, your son or daughter just graduated and yay, you got it.
oh, they have a party.
They have a party. But there's such, you just don't go off on, finally you're thinking about them. You've been thinking your life about them. How do I instill values? How do I instill character into this child of mine? And then all of a sudden, bam, it stops. Not that you stop being a parent, but that role stops. And nobody ever talks about that. And it is a harder transition to go and take that hat off of, oh, I'm their mom, not just their mother. I'm a mother now, not as a transition to an adult. But yeah, so that's hard. And then just, next steps, because where you live and your home, and you have, everything is transition and memories. And then I don't know if anybody else felt this way either, but you go through this time, oh gosh, I should have done that better when they were in 3rd grade and they were running out and they hurt their hand, and I shouldn't have. And so it's just easy to get sucked into that. But anyway, I think COVID really taught us all a lot about how important relationships are, and that is critical. And then really finding purpose and listening to where God's directing us to. So that's kind, but all of that. And then of course, all of us probably have aging parents, and that kind of throws into the mix as well. That little bit.
Mari, just what you said, just really, like, I started crying when you said when they leave, because you want them to go, and you want them to have a great life and everything. But when I got out of the house, my life was my life, and my parents I visited, but I'm like, but I tell you, it just takes time, and it takes tools. And about 10 or 11 years ago, I was on the cement for a year. I still worked full time, and I still showed up in the world, with a smile on my face. But I lost 2 brothers, my mom and dad. My husband left me, and my daughter moved to California.
Yeah,
So
that sounds like a cowboy song.
It does. And my 2 cats and dog died. I'm not kidding.
Oh, my word.
It was a time of immense loss, and
it's loss.
It takes it, but I had that fire, that little light inside me says, I have something special to give to the world. And God is saying to me, I will help you go through the shadow of the valley of death. But you got to go through this grief. And when you come out on the other side, you're not going to drink your grief to death. You're not going to, curl up in a ball. I'm going to take your hand, and I'm going to walk you through this grief. And on the other end, I'm going to give you people and tools to finally love yourself the way I love you. And then that's when we become whole. And so I just hear what you have to say. My heart is bursting.
Oh, There are two Bible verses from Psalm 23, and maybe you know Psalm 23. It's the Lord Shepherd. David wrote it in the Psalms. It's often quoted. It starts with the Lord is my shepherd, but embedded in the middle of that passage, there are two verses that basically says, "You lead me beside the still water. You restore my soul." So those two verses I've just been clinging on to, and knowing that this is a time of restoration and healing, and just the next direction, which I don't know, but the next direction. So.
Well, Mari,
Yeah.
I heard you say that there's nobody really there preparing you for this.
Yeah.
And as you go through it and you have such a strong will, which is much stronger than mine. I went through this in 2018. I was just telling my story on another thing that we did live this week. But in 2018, I pretty much declared to God, I don't want to work hard, much less harder for less results, when my son went to college. And everything that I had been preparing for, which was a career to take off in this business, I didn't even care about it anymore. I didn't care about anything.
Yeah.
And I went down a very, not a dark road, but it certainly wasn't an enlightened road. And I just think that maybe that's your role. Maybe as you learn how to navigate, you can help other women, because it is a real thing that happens. And you're going through, as you said, you've got older parents.
Yeah.
Usually you're that sandwich generation. You're
Yeah.
going through hormonal changes. And so for me, I didn't have the light that you and Deborah had. It didn't mean that I was that depressed that I would have harmed myself, but I did ask God to take me. I mean, I just got so tired of it. I was like, okay, God, I guess I'm done. And, but God had more, more in store for me. So maybe that's going to be the gift you give, the next gift you give the world, because you're so well put together. You're well respected. You've created this career. You've raised this amazing family, and you have so much to offer women that are going through it as well.
Well, thank you. That's
Yeah.
sweet. Thank you.
So I think that maybe I'm just gonna touch on this subject because it took me to a different place, and I think she knows what I'm gonna ask her about.
Oh no.
It's a little thing, but it's very big and profound. And I think we would not be fair to the audience if we didn't at least start to approach this, because she's a woman and she's from Washington or lived there. Now Laura's going to go back tomorrow to Washington, DC.
Lucky me.
To see her house.
I get to go into this.
And we all have profound feelings about this subject, and differing feelings. So I'm very.
Yeah. When I went to church the other day, the pastor said, now look, you guys, I'm going to ask you something in this church. He said, there's this huge thing going on in Washington right now with Roe versus Wade. And I'm going to ask you not to engage in the football game. We've all been programmed to take sides on a football game and yell and scream at each other and throw things at each other. And some people throw punches. And he said, it's a horrible way to be on Facebook, because it's not edifying anything that we represent as a humanity. And my feeling in life, and people know me, that I've operated every business I've ever had, every school I've ever had, on not fighting. So I don't do I refused, got in trouble on the front page of the paper a lot for not putting up the anti-smoking signs. I wouldn't do it because I knew that a picture of anti-smoking would get the kids to smoke. And I knew that the tobacco companies knew that, but the law passed that you had to put an anti-smoking thing up. Anyway, I want to hear just stories that give people a perspective of how they feel, and let people have their own feeling about whatever is right or wrong to them, because I think God speaks to us like a unique fingerprint. We don't know what to do ultimately because we're not God. we just are humans trying to figure it out. And so I said, you spent so much time in Washington and you saw so many, arguments and delegations for this and that. And I said, can you just give me your own perspective on what's going on in Washington with Roe versus Wade? And she did exactly what I thought she would. And so I'm just going to let her speak from her heart, because I think if I don't add anything to it, I think people can just feel her perspective and they can then tap into their own. And I think that we need to mention it because it's all over the news, and news sort of rules everybody's choices right now. And why don't we all get back to asking God to just talk to us by ourselves, which I think is the ultimate power, is your own power. So so what do you think about what's going on with Roe versus Wade? Or how do you feel about it as a woman in your own skin? Like, what do you think?
Yeah.
And talk to those guys.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's such a interesting, my perspective has changed so much since being a young person and then having children. And what I told to Trish when she asked me that last night, I said, well, I know this isn't going to be popular probably with most people, but I, at 6 weeks, when I first found out we were pregnant with my son, I found you have an ultrasound, and I saw the heartbeat. And with the ultrasound, you can actually see this little, it's like Pac-Man, the little things from Pac-Man, little dots like that on the screen, and it was moving and it was doing the heartbeat. And I just was like, whoa, well, wait a minute. I didn't think you're supposed to see a heartbeat so early on. And you definitely could see the heartbeat. And I just, God, I can't even imagine making something. I make a piece of art and it's not very good. I try, but it's not good. Leonardo, we saw one of Da Vinci's art pieces, and I've been a fan of some of the Italian painters over the years, but I can't even begin to make something like that. And to see this little human being baby with a heart and all the intricacies that go in each of our bodies with the heart and the valves and everything, and that's in the beginning. And so I was absolutely blown away at how beautiful that is. And do I need to go over here?
That's okay. I'll go.
How beautiful that is. I'll just lean into you. How beautiful that is. And that's when I absolutely unapologetically full pro-life. I think God blesses people with gifts of children and life. So that's
But then what did they do?
So and then
It went on from there.
Yeah, it did. There is a particular blood test that women have to get or should get if you're in the medical field, and it's pretty much in that field. You get, sometimes more information is good so you can make decisions. Anyway, one of the tests was a particular blood test. The problems with that blood test is that you have to take it exactly at a certain amount of weeks in the pregnancy. Anyway, I went ahead and did that blood test with the rest of the blood tests that you do when you're pregnant. And my doctor came back and said, oh, there is a problem. I said, what do you mean? There is a marker within your blood test that tells us that there's a problem with something that you have, that this child will have a disability. I said, oh, that's interesting. I literally said that. That's interesting. And she said, well, we need to do an amniocentesis, which is basically a needle in utero, where they extract some of the uterine material and the amniotic fluid to test it more. And I said, well, what's that going to do? Well, that's going to tell us the extent of this problem. And I started thinking about it, and I realized, well, so what? There's a problem. If there's a huge risk with amnio that the pregnancy could terminate because of the foreign object getting into the uterus. And I didn't want to do that risk. And further, as I thought about it, what information would they be telling me? Because then I would be stuck with, well, what are you going to do with that information? So I thought about it, and there's just no way, because, and she said, the doctor came in and said, well, if the information is XYZ, then you can make a decision to terminate the pregnancy.
Well, they said it might be a Down child.
Might be a Down syndrome child or something like that. And I said, well, wait just a minute. So it's a Down syndrome child, and then what? Well, you can make a decision to terminate the pregnancy. And I said, well, why would I do that? This is a life. This child is like, if that's what God has given me, that is what I have. Like, why would I terminate that? And anyway, so I ended up, and that was further on. I think you're about 26 weeks pregnant at that time. And and you're already stressed out at the first, and I had, that was my first baby, our first baby. And I already freaked out. So I switched doctors. So I was about 30 weeks old. So women are particular about their doctors. And I went ahead and just said, I was not in alignment with her at all. And I said, I can't believe you're telling me this. And a life is a life. And I'm selecting that for that reason. I said, absolutely not. So I switched doctors, and it turned out my son was amazing and like off the charts bright. In pediatrics and neurology, when an infant, one of the things they'll do is they hold a baby, and you'll look at the eyes, and they'll talk, and they'll talk on one side of the child's face to see if they turn and look, and it's called eye tracking. And some babies can do that very young, like 2 days old, and it's uncommon, but usually by a week old they can track and move, and they'll track with their eyes. As your voice changes, they'll move and track. He was doing that at 2 days old. So I just knew that it was, and I just kept praying that God would prepare me. And anyway, so that's that. But I do have to tell you a further story. This story is not over, actually. And some of my friends know this, not a lot of people, but when I left the hospital, the child was born about a week or two later than they had. So he was crinkled in his skin, and that basically the amniotic fluid has gone down. But it ended up being quite a difficult delivery. They had to give me Pitocin, which it just starts in the delivery. But he was so late in leaving, they had to start the delivery, the labor, and it was labor. But I ended up getting a epidural, which I didn't do again ever. But I got an epidural, and because of the epidural, I ended up getting a spinal cord. And what happened is the baby was born on a Monday. He was born on Monday, and by Wednesday of that same week, I was leaving the hospital, and I'm like, gosh, my back is so painful. And meanwhile, just my health-wise, gained the typical 20 pounds, was walking, super healthy all the time, healthy. So I said to the nurse, my back is really sore. Oh, honey, you just had a baby, you're fine. And I was like, no, it was like you've pulled your muscle from working out, that kind of pain. Anyway, so I go home Wednesday, Thursday, an immense amount of pain. By Friday, I could not walk. So I'm walking upright, but I don't know if you can see this. I was bent over like that, like grabbing the counters and walking, and just in so much pain. So I called my doctor, and you got to get a neurologist, get an MRI in your back. So they tried to do it. It's right around Christmas. All the offices were closed. Finally was able to get an MRI on my side, and plus the anxiety of the MRI, because you're in a small it was just a mess. Anyway, they finally allowed me to lay on my hip, but they didn't think they're going to get a clear reading. But they were able to get enough of information to see whatever it was all the way up to my neck. And so they were like, oh my goodness, you need to head down to Barrow right now. And that's a Barrow Neurological Institute down at one of our main hospitals. It's a big neurological area. Well, they specialize in head, spine, and all that. So I go in there. By the time I get in there, I can no longer walk. I can't move my leg. It happened like that. So I meet with the neurosurgeon in the ER, and he does that little test with the little triangle and the rubber thing.
Mm-hmm.
There was no reaction. Normally we move our legs when they do that. Nothing. So he grabbed my knee and he said, and as he's talking to me, the nurse comes in quickly to hook me up with all the stuff and the drugs. And he said, we're going to go do surgery right now. And I need to tell you something. Based on how you're presenting and this MRI, you are either going to be paralyzed from the waist down, or option 2 is you're going to be dead. But whatever it is, it's all the way up to the top of your neck in the thoracic area. So right between your shoulder blades, right up there. And we're going to surgery like right now. And so I was like, wow, I have a newborn. And I was just, okay, God, when you're in those situations, people have said, what do you do when you face death and what are you going to do? What are you going to say? Do you regret anything? And I was like, okay.
Oh
no.
my gosh.
So all I said to him, I said, okay. He said, well, we're gonna put you on a gurney. We're gonna take you down this hallway, and you're gonna go right to the emergency room. I'm gonna find out we're in operating room. Couldn't find out what's going on. But these are your 2 options. So I just want to prepare you. I was like, okay. And then I was like, but I said, I don't want to go on the gurney. Can I just sit in a wheelchair, please, all the way down? Because it's a long hallway, and I don't know why I wanted. On the hallway are all these beautiful people in black and whites from the beginning of the hospital, but people who are no longer there, but they had a mission and they had a vision for this great hospital. And I just wanted to see the people on this. I don't know why I did that to this day, but I just wanted some normalcy, I guess, as I'm going into the operating room. So they let me do that. And I wheeled all this so I could see all the pictures on the wall. And we went down to the end of the long hallway. They put me up on the bed, and by that time they're putting up the medication, and I'm gone. The next time I woke up, I was in the ICU with somebody I remember had just had brain cancer, and they were taking out part of the tumor in her brain. But we're both completely, just out of it, but we're conscious of each other in the room. And anyway, long story short, and I'm sorry this is taking so long, but they found that I had a staph infection on my spinal cord. And it had moved up from the entry level of where the epidural had started, which is in the lumbar. So it's kind of in between your hips, that lumbar area. We all know where in that lower part. Wow. And it had traveled so quickly all the way up to the top.
Wow.
So what their protocol was that they opened my back up, cleaned that area out, and started flushing me. And staph is why they clean the hospital walls when you go in there. It's super sterile because you don't know you can't really keep it contained. And evidently the staph was from my own skin, and it just got all the way up there. But they have high doses of antibiotics. I had a PICC line for about a month and a half, and tons of oral antibiotics, painkillers like to wazoo because you're in pain. It's just like your back is twitching because those muscles. So when you go open up a refrigerator door, those muscles are your back muscles. Maybe you don't use them a lot, but most of us don't even think about it. Turning on a toilet wash, the washing in the sink in the bathrooms, you're twisting a faucet. Again, little back muscles. So all of that was completely affected. But the whole point of this entire story, just to wrap it up before you all fall asleep and say, okay, we don't want everyone to.
No, we got to run over to Clubhouse so people can ask you questions.
Oh, what the whole point of that story is I was in the hospital then, and then at that point they make you get up and walk, and I'm so grateful for that neurosurgeon. But I was in the hospital then on the Monday, and again, we're a week after the birthday of my son, right? So in the hospital, I received this food that was the same food as I had right after I had delivered the baby. And then it hit me. All those girls who have their children, who have babies, and they know they can't care for them, and they've sacrificed so much to have this little child and not terminate the pregnancy, but they decided this life is so important. I'm going to have this child, and they've kept that child, and then they've decided to let the child up for adoption. I'm laying in bed having the same food that I had a week before. And sorry, but all things happening to your bodies, if there are any gentlemen, I will be careful, but everything's happening at that point with the supply for food for the child and all of that coming in. So there's so much going on, and your emotions. And I will say, my son wasn't with me because he couldn't come back into the hospital. It was during the respiratory, during the December time period. You don't have children back in the hospital, especially newborn, in the areas I was in. They would never allow that because he could catch something. So the babies are out of the hospital once they're born, they're home. So all I could think of was this amazing, when I was a high school teacher, I had an amazing girl who had gotten pregnant, went away, had the baby, gave it up for adoption, came back. And what a gift of motherhood. And I've also had friends that have had abortions and all of that. So this is absolutely no judgment on them at all. I love them dearly. But I have to just tell you my experience. When I was laying in that hospital bed, I was overwhelmed by the thought of what true sacrifice motherhood is, and understanding everything that moms give up for all of us. And some of us have really good moms, and some people have not had good moms, and I'm sorry about that. But that sacrifice was just so amazing for somebody else. And I ended up writing that young lady a long note, and I just said, you really exemplified the most selfless act at all. And again, just giving up that child because you want the child and you want the baby. And it's a very difficult time period. So I guess I'll wrap it up at that.
Oh, we're all crying.
No, I should be a better
So
no, but it's true. And it really touched me about that and how
all right,
giving it
you're
is.
gonna be asked questions by the public.
Uh-oh.
So you guys get a little glimpse of why I love her so much. And
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to meet you, Mari.
I know. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, you'll be down here. All right, kids, I have posted the link to the CodPast in our Facebook, in this Facebook, and also on my own. And you guys can copy and paste the one from CodPast into your own so that they can find it. And we'll see you over at
Mari, thank you so much for joining us. I have loved this. I will put it on YouTube soon. Thank you for sharing your story. I know you're private, and I'm very grateful that you shared something so deep. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
She's incredible.
I'm gonna play this song so that we can go out.
Oh, we're going out with the song.
It takes 1 second to get